Then Irene Woodward escaped New York and went to war. It was the beginning of October, 1943. Irene was 25. She tucked her official letter of acceptance in her pocketbook. She had never volunteered for anything in her life. Along with her letter, her bag held directions on reporting for duty once she got to Washington, her hotel reservation, and her appointment for a physical examination and inoculations at the Pentagon. The War Department had not paid for her train ticket, nor had the Red Cross. Some of her papers were stamped secret. They were hidden at the bottom of her shoulder bag, which rode atop her suitcase, secured by buckled straps. She felt dangerous and at large. No one knew she had signed up, and she had left when nobody was looking. The Empress of Getaways. Such intrigue. There had been many interviews. She had snuck to the Atlantic region offices to be inspected. Her recommendation letters were gathered surreptitiously, so nobody in her family would know what she was doing. She had signed on as a recreation worker with the American Red Cross, volunteering for overseas duty. For the duration of the war plus 6 months, however long that might be, barring injury or review. She was accepted and ordered to attend 2 weeks of training at American University in Washington, D.C. The air was crisp enough the morning she left New York for her to wear a long-sleeved white blouse under a pale red sweater. That was good, since she didn't want anyone staring at her arms. She was glad she didn't need a scarf. She had made up her eyes with great care. She was quite adept with concealers. She was sure nobody would notice. It might just look like she had been a little weepy over leaving. Still, for good measure, tucked into her hair, she wore sunglasses, which her friends called cheaters. Very dark, very Betty Davis. Ready if needed. Her engagement ring was down the storm drain on East 28th Street, halfway between Lexington and Park. The cab had collected her there in the dark. Her ring was probably rolling along the sewer pipe, on its way to the river. Before Irene was a fiancé, she had set out from Staten Island for Washington, D.C., the story went, to find herself. In a family whose eldest aunt was famous for being the first white woman up the Amazon, there was room for such things. Irene had fruitlessly pursued several different careers in D.C., but she was incurably restless and never quite satisfied. She first took a position as a secretary to a congressman. She then scurried to a job selling jewelry at a high-end boutique. Too proud to ask the Woodwards for money, she even tried working as a governess for a prominent family. When she found herself selling tickets in the evening at a burlesque theater and contemplating becoming a waitress in a cafe, she knew it was time to concede defeat and go back home. For the last 3 years, she had toiled away in Mother's antique shop, ultimately managing it for her when she went on acquisition trips. Woodward's Antiques was Mother's crowning achievement, and Irene dutifully took up the cause. For the family, the name blazoned across the storefront was almost more important than the goods within. It anchored the women in particular to a certain status in local society, not dependent on whom they married. They were always Woodwards first, New York matriarchs. But it was in the antique shop where Irene met her notorious beau, the son of a prominent political family. After a few exquisite dates of champagne, lovely dinners, and flowers for her mother, Irene's family decided he was exactly what she needed. Mother began her campaign, reminding Irene that she wasn't getting any younger, though she was only 23 when he proposed. Irene was fond of him, but she had no plans to marry anyone. She had seen her mother's marriages and wasn't interested. She was living in Mother's pied-à-terre, a tidy second-floor apartment in a brownstone, where Mother stayed only for special occasions or when she was on an antique-buying expedition for her shop on Upper Broadway. Irene understood that no one in her family would have approved of her moving in with her beau. It would have been a scandal for the ages. So she didn't. Which, of course, stiffened her resolve to sneak him into the apartment whenever she could. She had accepted the proposal only because the Woodwards had pressured her. It wasn't about the money. Money was gauche, after all.